Hello and welcome to episode 138 of the Dash News podcast. I'm Mark Mason and I'm joined by my fellow co-host and amigo, Joel Valenzuela. How's it going, Joel?
It's going fantastic today. What about you?
Yeah, happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Week's over, kind of, but the grind never stops.
Excellent. Well, this week we don't have a special guest. I was hoping was going to be joined by Omar from Cryptos News, but I think we're going to have to try to reschedule and chase him up, and hopefully we can have him on a future podcast. But fear not, there's plenty to discuss. So I'm hoping this podcast we can talk about some recent news, some things upcoming, and also perhaps get some community engagement as well. We can throw some ideas, some suggestions out there, perhaps even take some questions from the community as well. But I think the most important thing, Joel, probably to start off the podcast, is this week in Dash, there was quite a lot of price action and it seemed to come out of nowhere. And, I hope the price holds. I hope it goes higher. With this market, no one knows, but Dash phenomenally outperformed the rest of the market. I think at one stage we were at 24 in coin market cap, and then we went up into 10. I think we're just below that now. But I mean, this is pretty amazing. So let me ask you.
Yes.
Do you think the price movement was due to a delayed reaction to EvoNet, or do you think it was fundamentals? Or do you think or do you think it's the traders? They were watching the technical analysis and then they saw, because Dash broke through the 200-day moving average of Dash to BTC and Dash to USD. And it seems like that BTC trade has been playing out for a long time. What do you think? Or do you think it's a combination of everything?
It's probably a combination of multiple things. I honestly think most of it has something to do with traders. I do think that the markets were ridiculously oversold for a long time, and there's quite a few. There's some insider info on that too, but there's also just looking at it, for a top performing fantastic project, Dash dumped hard last year. Just went way down, annoyingly, bafflingly low, while other projects getting 51% attacked or whatever else just were like hanging out there. And so it was pretty obvious that it was like way oversold in some kind of, possibly manipulative effort. But at some point, once you keep dumping at a certain point and then there's still demand for it, people will eventually get back in, especially when you hit a bottom and then it starts to go up. People stop waiting for the bottom and jump all in. And so you just saw that slingshot. It's like all that pressure, something's pulling the price down artificially where demand wants to be higher. And then blink, you have that slingshot and then down and then hopefully back up again and keeps going. So that's what I think it is. And of course, that demand to actually buy long term is not going to exist without some kind of fundamentals. And the EvoNet release, I think, is something that few people, as far as like you're talking about the spectrum of traders and investors and stuff, few people have actually touched on, they actually used or anything. But just the fact that, yay, they got it out the door is like, that's always like a price signal. Like they deliver, and people, this is still a fundamentally coding based, development based ecosystem. And if you just say, we released this big long hyped thing, it's out, then it doesn't matter how well it works or not, really. If you just can deliver, that's a big first step. And a lot of people really, really take to that and, reward it with price action, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it was just the price of Dash feeling the pressure last year, especially towards the close of last year. It was the community as well. This price, even now, alleviates a lot of pressure if it can hold where it is. It really helps out Dash Core Group and the treasury, because it has had a detrimental effect to a certain degree on not just proposals going up, but just the treasury in general. Because it grinds everything to a halt. We've had lots of news recently with the Dash Investment Foundation. And of course, everyone is excited to see not just Dash being able to take equity in things, but also utilize a investment strategy. But really, we need to have the price at a good sweet spot to be able to use that Dash to be able to make investments and really to get that external exposure and awareness of the diff. Right, we need to first make moves to get people talking. So I'm hoping now we're on a path forward. And also as well with Core, they've been working on on a very constrained budget, right? Because of the low Dash price. So I'm hoping now that they're in the clear and things are, that pressure's off them. That's great. And we should actually start 2020 how we want to. We want to, start off and finish how we intend to. So I think that the future's great. However, you never know what's going to happen with these price actions. And to be fair and unbiased, although I think Dash performed the best in terms of the overall week, there were other cryptocurrencies that kind of had like shock boosts and turns and episodes as well. And one of them, Joel, was BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. And I believe that was due to some news coming out about some documentations from Craig Wright. And at one point, BSV took over Bitcoin Cash, and I think was number 4 in CoinMarketCap, and that kind of blew me away. So, I mean, I don't know much about that story. Did you read into any of that?
Yes, I don't know very much in detail, but there's some ongoing case with Craig Wright and the estate of David Kleinman, and apparently the details are a little bit fuzzy because I've heard, depending on who you ask, 2 completely different things happened. Either it was, as you're very fond of saying, a nothing burger, and just some courier delivered some list of addresses that Craig Wright supposedly owns or whatever, and who knows. Or the keys to Satoshi's hoard have been verified to be in Craig Wright's possession, therefore he's Satoshi. I can't really tell which it is at this point, but the price went astronomical because of that. Now, I don't think that the price went astronomical because of the news alone. I think that the price artificially went astronomical, causing people to look around, and then they see the news, maybe buy into it before it's too late, and then continue to pump the price. And honestly, like, this is over my years in working in the crypto space, of course, young, naive, and idealistic, just, everything is going to run on this. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to use it. Perfect money of the future, all this kind of stuff. Still is there with an even tempering of, this is a crazy speculative market right now, and there's a lot of deliberate manipulation. People use the term manipulation to specifically be a negative term. Sometimes it is, right? But just deliberately trying to influence the price by buying and selling. And some people just call that smart. Some people call that shady. Who knows? But I do notice that there's a very distinctive pattern that, first off, if you release a major news story, it can pump the price. But people don't look around for major news stories until they see a price pump, usually. Or if they see a major news story and no price action, they assume it's not that major or not verified, and they don't buy. It's like, so it seems like people have caught into the sweet spot of pumping the price in order to announce a news story, and then that pumps the price further. So every single time you see, something like this, and BSV might be one of the most egregious cases of that, because it's been delisted from a lot of exchanges, therefore it's not very liquid, therefore it's much easier to move the price in one direction or another. It just seems like, that's gonna happen. Now, if whoever pumped the ever-loving out of the Dash price could just get in contact with us for next time, so we could make sure to put out a story around that, so it's not just, why did Dash go crazy? Well, it's a long time coming. It's like to actually be like, this happened, and not in any kind of dishonest or manipulative way, because of course we're just only talking about real things, but to choose to time an announcement around there, or even if the announcement's out, time an amplification of the announcement around that time. So what happened when the price goes up, and then they're like, oh, see this actual cool fundamental thing. I don't know. It's just crazy times we live in. But when you see some sort of astronomical pump like that, especially when it's tied to a news story, you know what's up.
Yeah, and the volatility and just the sheer amount of the price just going up. I think it was like 147% in 7 days is insane. And when you think about our budget proposal system, it makes submitting proposals and holding them difficult, because I think in our voting cycle, we've got like 10 days to go. And a lot can happen then. So in terms of like planning for the future and submitting things, you can make a lot of changes. I mean, this time around, the Dash Investment Foundation submitted a proposal for 800 Dash. But of course, the Dash price, in terms of US dollar things was down. And they've now submitted another one, which will help make room for other proposals. But it's also exciting as well, because if the price holds, then that creates a whole lot of other opportunity. And just before we went live, we were discussing, the heyday, glory days of Dash. Its all-time high
of being able to, shall we say, afford this.
Yeah, hashtag Dash can afford this. And in December 2017, when we hit the peak, okay, it was only for 1 month when it was all-time highs, but the treasury alone in that budget cycle had about $5 million US. Imagine what the diff could do with
at
that.
Its peak, at its peak, at 10 million.
Was 10 million? Oh my god! So but let's reality check. We're a long way away from that, but it's just showing what is possible. And I think since the diff has been created, we haven't actually been able to fully see it in its fully formed function because of where Dash has been price-wise. But now I think we can start to see it flourish. Now that there's a new Dash investment manager on board, we can start to see a strategy come together, hopefully start to take equity in some of our strategic partnerships. And then I think that recognition outside the Dash bubble, echo chamber just within the community, will start to earn that industry recognition and begin to turn heads and put eyeballs on Dash and realize that it's pretty interesting. Actually, one interesting concept that came out an after party after the podcast a few weeks ago was to use the diff in like as a central bank. So that, say, for example, the US dollar, right, used to be backed by gold, right? Until 1971, right? So imagine if we held lots of reserves in gold, and then because of this price volatility and the price going down, whenever it goes down at a certain point, we can then sell some of our gold reserves then to help hold the price and to steady the ship, which essentially is what the Federal Reserve and central banks do. They try to manage the economy. I mean, they try to inject like money, but that's not great. I mean, I'm talking about the old school way of actually having some reserves for, that reason. But I mean, this is just only like one idea, but this is one of the great things I love about the community, that we get to discuss as a network ideas, concepts, and try and find a way forward. And when we do have that money to play within the diff, I think that's going to be a real good it's going to show good times to come for Dash, I think. Right, so one of the other things I wanted to discuss with you was the article that you wrote yesterday, which kind of came out the blue. It was about the Crypto Ranking Council, and Dash got the highest score. Do you just want to talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, so don't know too much about the Crypto Rating Council itself. Apparently, there are several larger exchanges and systems are kind of are involved in it, but essentially, it rates in crypto investments on a basically risk scale, and the risk is of being potentially classified as security by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And so 5 is you're a total security, dudes. 1 is no, you're not. You're very comfortably not. And so it's that's a very sort of granular way of saying it. It sounds like it's a very like, okay, so this whole council is there just to rate what one global regulating body might consider this is classified as. Seems a little bit weird to like, why would you care? But first off, I mean, let's be honest, the US financial system dominates a lot of the world. And I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why people are into crypto might be related to that as well. But first off, if something is classified as a security, then there's a certain amount of regulatory due diligence you have to do when selling these investments to consumers, investors, including identity requirements and other things. And so essentially, if something's considered to be a security, it's going to have a lot of cryptos. No cryptos is pretty much as far as I know, is a security today. But if it actually is, a security and it just has not been classified as such, it is an illegal security, in which case, that's a whole lot of problems between selling it. But here's the why it would be a secure, like the kind of underlying thing. So do you remember, Mark, the illustrious segment of CoinMarketCap known as the shitcoin filter?
Yes, the non-mineable filter.
Yes, and it's funny because here we go. I have to use the shitcoin filter to talk about this because it's a completely arbitrary metric that, like, okay, why do you care other than a curiosity? But it means so much more. So mineable versus non-mineable. Mineable being proof of work, anyone can run a thing and then kind of do it. Essentially, there's a category to filter out the ones that can't be mined. And in the old days, this was to get rid of what are commonly known as shitcoins, or coins with like very little value that someone just made a whole bunch of them and distributed them and used them to manipulate the price and get some extra money for themselves. But it becomes a little bit more tricky with the introduction of proof of stake and other systems like that are starting to become more accepted. But even so, having no proof of work mining, having no mining function at all, makes it so that so first off, if you start a coin with no mining, only proof of stake, or only no proof of stake, or however you do it, if you start a coin only that way, then the initial people who created it have control over the entire supply and therefore the entire coin. And the only way you can get other coins is from people who already own some. And if you have a pure, and that is, even if you start proof of work for 5 years and then switch to proof of stake completely, you still have that element where the only way to participate in the system is through permission of people already participating in the system. And mining makes it so that anyone can participate in the system. Practically, you kind of have to be a hardware manufacturing giant or something like that to really have an impact and all this stuff. But the point is, anyone could just say, you know what, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to get into Dash mining, and then just go design, put a lot of money of, fiat money, right? Or Bitcoin or whatever other non-Dash, put that into R&D, figure out, manufacture a bunch of new top of the line ASICs, and then just participate in a large portion of the Dash ecosystem, start getting Dash, start spinning up masternodes, start voting on stuff, and no one can stop them from getting in. So coins that don't have this ability for just anyone to participate tend to become, centralized little not that good projects. So the shitcoin filter basically blocks all those out. So if you're like, hey, this new random tokenized thing jumped into number 4 and CoinMarketCap, push something else out, it kind of cuts away the noise and just says, like, this is the real list of like the power players are going to be there long term, probably. So all that to go back down to the Crypto Rating Council. Sorry for being verbose. And if something has a high score and is likely to be a security, it's also more likely to be I wouldn't say use the word shitcoin, but I would say either a lesser project or more importantly, a less decentralized product. So if you have something that has a high score there, it can be good, but it's more like, think of it more like a company. You're trusting a company and stuff. And I would say, so Dash got a score of number 1, the lowest possible score, i.e. the highest possible score, the best possible score. Bitcoin got a 1. Litecoin got a number 1. Monero got a number 1, and a few others like Horizon and a couple others. So that's a good way of saying that this is like a legit crypto project. Does it mean that all those projects are great and have a long-term value? Not necessarily, but it's a starting point. It just means that you're like an actual real deal. Now, I'm sure we've talked a lot about Litecoin in the past, where we have not always said very nice things, but nevertheless factual things, and about how it's mostly revolves around one person or a couple people and doesn't have necessarily all that much utility long-term compared to competitors, certainly not compared to its market cap. And so if we were able to say that about a project that's ranked number 1, how about 2, 3, 4, 5? Those rankings, like how much more like less centralized, like less decentralized can they be? So Do you remember the ones that the major projects that are above Dash and market cap that still even in the top, even when Dash was in the top 10? Do you remember the major ones that Dash did better than?
What, originally? Because Dash was, third at one point in time. So, I mean,
Oh,
we've
was
been
it?
higher than.
No, I mean, as far as the Crypto Ratings Council.
Oh, yeah. So, well, the highest rating you could get was a 1, right? So I'm just remembering the chart that Freemover made. So it was like Bitcoin, DAI, Dash. Obviously, Ethereum was rated number 2, and I think in terms of recognition, that probably goes a long way. And one of the reasons I'm pleased that you mentioned about proof of work, because in your article and in the title as well, you pointed out that we was higher than Zcash as well, and I believe you specifically highlighted Zcash because that is a entirely 100% proof of work project. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's interesting because they're both the number twos. There's a few of them, but for example, Zcash is entirely mined, and a lot of people say like, oh, Dash scammy masternodes, proof of stake hybrid. Now, a lot of people just cast doubt. It's like the nerd consensus is like, oh, proof of work is the only way to go, which again gets reflected in the shitcoin filter. But Zcash is 100% mined, basically. There's no masternodes, no treasury, no something like, but it received a more likely to be illegal security rating than Dash because it had this thing called a founder's reward. It was created by, a company, a group of people, and the developers received part of the block reward. I believe that's about to be up this year. For the first 3 years, I believe there's 20% per year or whatever. 10% of the eventual coin supply was going to a group. And a lot of that is similar to what Dash has with the treasury, that a lot of it goes to Dash Core Group, except Dash Core Group is not guaranteed a single cent to the treasury. Single duff, sorry. Anyone can vote on proposals. Anyone can vote out proposals. But because basically Zcash was guaranteed its developers pay, and anyone who bought into that was, in effect subsidizing that. That makes it a little less of a decentralized system. Now, after Zcash runs out of the founder's reward, and assuming nothing else like that gets put in, then you could say Zcash goes into Litecoin territory of number 1, hopefully on the Crypto Ratings Council, but possibly abandoned, possibly still beholden to the same people. Who knows? We'll see how it plays out. Ethereum's the same thing. Ethereum is technically decentralized and 100% proof of work, despite them being associated with proof of stake very much for talking about it so much, but not actually doing it. So the thing is, Ethereum had a giant pre-mine. I wouldn't say giant, whatever. It had a pre-mine, and it was an ICO, the first great ICO. And they sold tokens to a bunch of people, then they started mining. So because of that, the original holders, the original founders, forcibly had a large percentage of the tokens that then they later sold, but is still under their control. Now that stuff happens with a lot of crypto proof of work mined coins because the founders tend to try to mine at the start too. But it's not forced. It's not like necessary. Like someone could just take a huge interest in the coin and just gobble up most of the early coins where the founders can't even get a decent stake going on. So because of those things, these two respected, austere projects and stuff got lower ratings than Dash. And don't even get me started about ones like XRP, Ripple, or it used to be called Ripple, and then they started calling it XRP when they didn't want to be classified as security. 3.75, I believe, because all the tokens were created by Ripple. And
Ripple's been in a lot of trouble in the news recently. I'm not sure if it was the IRS, but someone's gone after them because Ripple, the company, has been accused of creating the currency XRP and selling it for profit for Ripple to do business on their side, and that's pretty naughty in terms of security.
Very naughty.
So we'll have to see how that one plays out. We've had a question actually in the chat, and if you are watching this via video on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube, please do submit questions. We had a question from Nikitas. I hope I got that right. So what do you guys think about the coming future for Dash? Predictions on price points and what's coming next? Well, price is kind of a pie in the sky thing. Of course, I want the Dash price to go up, but what's coming next? What I would like to see in Dash is us attract more developers. I want to see things like hackathons and what dApps we can build, whether it's gaming. I'd love to see more young people coming into Dash and more of an active developer community. How we increase that engagement or create like a HubSpot where people can talk about ideas for dApps, or even coming together with different groups and also sharing problems, talking about code, and even mentors essentially helping point people in certain directions. I think that'll be a great. I don't know if Discord is the best tool for that, but I think that really the Dash platform is going to open up a lot of doors, and I think it's really going to help differentiate Dash from a lot of projects out there, because it's going to be that extra added value that we offer on top. We'll get people using Dash platform, meaning having a Dash platform name, they're creating an account, and then for payments, messaging, social media, whatever dApps people create, games. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. It's kind of like unlimited potential, but we need to attract those people first. So while we're in testnet, I hope that we can attract talent, but really I think to put this into hyperspeed, we're going to have to really create great events, attract top talent, create bug bounties or even dApp bounties that the community want. What services do the community want? Let's get those ideas up there, do a poll, see what is the priority, put a bounty there, do some amazing hackathons, and let's get the solutions that we want as a network. And that for me is the most exciting thing. The price of Dash, it will come. I'm sure it will be, because I really think that we're the utility coin. In terms of like real world use, in terms of metrics, Joel was talking about Litecoin earlier. If coin market cap was based on utility, metrics, transactions, everything else, we're talking about a different story. But I think over time, more and more people are coming into cryptocurrency. It's a young person's game. More and young people coming into crypto all the time. And I do believe there will be a stage. I mean, a lot of people talk about the boomers, right? And at some stage, they're gonna pass on that wealth to the next generation, right? And what are they going to do with that? Are they going to be more open to the stock market, or are they going to be more inclined to digital crypto assets? Because they probably would have grown up playing video games like these Fortnites, and more open to alternative currencies, things like precious metals and gold that I was into when I was younger, and I still am an advocate for. They're probably less likely inclined to be going. So I think that's actually a big topic and a big story, because there is a big gap. There's the boomers and there's people in the middle bracket, probably where I am at, where like we've had to create our own wealth, and then we've got the new young generation, and then they're going to be like inheriting stuff, and then what they do with that money, who knows? But the market is very fickle. It's still very young. We're at an early stage, but in terms of valuing things in dollar prices, like dinosaur paper money, as I put out a tweet recently, if people are using fiat currency as toilet paper, do you really want to value your crypto in it? Because I feel that's the way that fiat currency will inevitably go, the way of the dodo. And so I'm all about the end game rather than just try to make a few dollars. And yeah,
I think it's funny because we have in our possession this is about the free market needs to intensely study cryptocurrency, because this is where people have been able to, because if you create physical goods and services and assets, that there's always a bigger biff physical, and there's much easier to like shut it down or regulate or whatever. Creating digital assets, anyone can do it anytime, anywhere, as many times as you want, all over the place. And while you can like regulate in terms of what you do to people caught using mainstream ones or the main exchange, you can regulate assets. You can't regulate cryptocurrencies as a whole. You just can't. You can't create some who pumps out tokens here or there. And because of this, there's been this giant explosion of stuff. And because of that giant explosion of stuff, we've seen what works and what doesn't. And more important, the big thing is people created, I would believe, people created Bitcoin as an experiment, but also to be a sound money payment system that is outside of the control of the people who have manipulated the current economic system and caused harm. And what did we see happen with Bitcoin? First off, people just tried out whatever they could. Like, oh, let's do micro tipping. Let's encode messages in there. Let's try, yeah, they did little things here and there. Let's gamble with it. It's great for that. And then they started saying, okay, this is good money. This is good for paying stuff, especially internationally. Irreversible payments. So places like one of the things I always go back to is the purse.io business model, which is people have Amazon gift cards. They can't really, if they don't want to buy anything from Amazon, sometimes they prefer to take a hit of that in order to spend it on somewhere else to get real money, as it were. The problem is real money is much easier to defraud people with. You can do chargebacks, you can do whatever. But because of that one-way permanent digital cash nature of things, people say like Bitcoin's the perfect tool for this. So they started doing that. And so people found all kinds of uses. Now we have the crypto space that just anything goes, and people are trying to figure out what actually works for what. So we had Ethereum, which, smart contracts, all this cool stuff, all the hype around Ethereum, just you can do whatever you want with all this kind of stuff. What's the first thing people that really takes hold? Tokens, specifically ICOs, raise an absolute metric, what load of money. And there you go. That's like the number one. It's a great way of raising money. And then the boom kind of died out, but then people started making all kinds of tokens on the Ethereum platform. And because they were doing that, now you have all of a sudden, you have just all kinds of different projects running things, but mostly just to have tokens, right? And because of that, a lot of the more fanciful things that you used for Ethereum, a lot of the more fanciful applications, just, people kind of weren't employing them to a great degree. And same thing with like Bitcoin, once it became less able to be used as a payment system, then it transferred to like a store of value type thing, where I believe a giant chunk of its actual utility and value has kind of eroded. But there is still some in that, hey, it's relatively stable in terms of the inflation rate. It's relatively secure, like people aren't going to be able to attack and reverse transactions in a lot of cases. And it's auditable, it's there, it's like it's like a digital gold kind of thing. Of course, I argue that it used to be able to do all that plus actually be useful for everyday payments. And Dash can probably do all those, but technologically speaking is superior and more secure. And of course, for example, if you put Dash at Bitcoin's current adoption rates and market cap, they'd blow it out of the water. Absolutely. But now there's a little bit more argument. So we're seeing what does the market kind of want? And so Dash is digital cash. First off, I don't think Dash worked as well as I wouldn't say as advertised, but as well as some people might have thought as digital cash before instant send by default was implemented. Before that, it was like basically like a Bitcoin that scaled, but you had this special feature that sometimes would work a little, but now it's like all fantastic. But also, where's the demand for digital cash? It's not as high as you'd think. I think eventually it's a giant demand. It's like everyone wants this payment system of the future. But we found out in the short term, people didn't value it as highly as you'd think. People weren't actually wanting to buy their coffee with Dash or with Bitcoin Cash, let's be honest, or with Bitcoin SV or with whatever else. People just not enough people really cared. Now that's where Dash platform comes in being able to create a way of like running all kinds of different decentralized applications, having decentralized authorization, like usernames and logins and all this kind of stuff could be really cool. And before I get into that, I just want to say trading, right? People, Cryptos are great to trade speculatively probably because they aren't securities. They don't have as many regulations. They are easier to just flip around all over the place. And because they're volatile and speculative, you can get a lot of gains out of them. And because they're emerging, probably the whole field's going up. So your chances of getting absolutely wrecked long term are maybe not as good as in something that's a little bit more stable. So that's where I think we're going to see a lot of Dash demand and utility come, is when more and more exchanges start implementing Dash with instant send or chain locks, so you can get deposits in and out faster, and people realize, hey, I can move money across exchanges extremely fast, and any kind of price discrepancy for any crypto asset on any exchange, I can just take advantage of it, move it over one exchange, buy a whole bunch where it's cheap because someone dumped a whole bunch of a very illiquid coin. Just move a bunch of Dash over, buy it up cheap, and then go sell it at a profit on the other exchange. You're going to see a lot of actual use for what, real people today, real crypto users today actually want to use Dash for. And ask me about why usernames are going to be fantastic for Dash.
Why are Dash Pay usernames going to be fantastic for Dash?
Fantastic. You take instruction well. The reason why they're going to be fantastic, why we think they're going to be fantastic, and they will probably long term, is because anyone can pay anyone anywhere really easily, just username to username. I just do send @staydashy, zip, and there you go. And then I just put my contact list, I throw something to old Agnew Pickens, boom, there you go. It's so easy. Shorter term, usernames will hopefully, from what I've been told, will be able to associate extended public keys. We'll be able to associate extended public keys of other cryptocurrencies. So you say, hey, Dash is so easy to send. All right, well, but I don't have Dash. I don't really care about it too much. I have some in my portfolio, but that's it. Why do I care that I can send Dash back and forth? Oh, wait, no, you can use your Dash to send anything back and forth to anyone really easily. So what happens if I say, oh, Dash works so well, I have my little username, I'm going to send it to you. And you're like, yeah, but I'm a Bitcoin Cash guy. Sorry. All right, there ends the demand. But what happens if you both, and if the Edge team is watching this, I'm coming for you later, because if the Edge, something like a multi-coin wallet such as Koinomi or Edge implements Dash usernames, you can have a single Dash username for all the coins associated, hopefully. Again, this is what I've been told. I'm not 100% sure on the details. But then I can send anyone any kind of crypto. I can send someone, Digibyte or BSV or whatever. I can just send it to them by using their Dash username, and it goes to their wallet. So then Dash usernames become the username standard for crypto. And it's not
I'd be interested. Do you know how that works, though? Because I'd be curious to see. Because obviously, different blockchains have different addresses and start differently. We've seen a lot of people, unfortunately, send a Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash addresses, for example, and then lose their BTC. I'm kind of interested, like how it would know which address, which blockchain belongs to. But if that is a possibility, I think that would be a great incentive for third-party wallets that are multi-coin to do that.
Yes, I think it would work pretty well, because you would have an extended public key for any of your wallets associated with the Dash username. So when you send a request, when you send like a payment to that, it would query the XPub key of whatever wallet. Now, of course, if you have I don't exactly know how the different address formats would work, but hopefully we don't have those confusions in the future too much, of like one coin being able to send to a bunch of different, having a bunch of different address formats that aren't compatible. But imagine that. And then imagine exchanges having Dash usernames, to where now let's just say your Binance account has an associated username. So now you have your mobile wallet, your hardware wallet, your whatever it is, on your contact list, you have your Binance account. And so then you can just like send to trade, whoop, and whatever crypto you have. Of course, Dash would be great because it's fast and but whatever it is, just send it to there and you get it. And then when you want to withdraw, just say withdraw to username instead of like, I got to copy and paste this big ugly key. And you can just withdraw. You can use the same username to withdraw your Dash, your Bitcoin, your BSV, or BCH, your Ethereum. Just can you imagine that? Where now everything works on all that. And instead of having an email login, what if you have, what's your email address and then your password and we get you in? Or, or you just have your Dash username. Your one Dash username works to log in with all these different, you can authenticate all your exchanges. Can you imagine that stuff? That's where people start to really, where the crypto world, I think people who right now care about crypto start to really care about Dash, because then every single transaction, every single link has to use some Dash. You have to use some Dash, will be converted to credits on the Dash platform chain and then use it. But basically, there'll be lots of activity on the Dash blockchain itself, and of course, the platform side chain, and of course, with the master network, whenever people are doing all this kind of stuff. So I think that'll be huge for Dash. And my dream, hopefully we can all hustle enough. Again, anyone wants to help out with this who's listening, just let me know, or do it on your own. Who cares? It's decentralized, right? Get a major multi-coin provider, wallet provider, and a major exchange to both implement Dash usernames as their form of username when Dash platform is released on mainnet. Just come out with a bang. And if you're some kind of crazy trigger happy trader, why don't you choose that as a time to pump the price right around the time when that announcement comes out? So then we get all kinds of attention on it and people go nuts. Anyway, that's my rant.
Well, ease of use is really, really important, and we will be waiting for the Dash Pay usernames for a long time. One thing that I still would like to see, and am yet to see, is trustless user staking from one dash upwards. Because we're seeing a trend now where even exchanges are trying to become the future banks, where you've got people like Kraken offering staking now, in addition to being an exchange. Coinbase is offering staking as well, only for Tezos at the moment, but they're offering that. And of course, then you're trusting them as a custodian to hold your coins, when really the message for me has always been to take back control and become your own bank. And although I'm very thankful and grateful, we have a plethora of different services where you can do pooled masternode sharing and stake and earn rewards from one dash upwards. Actually, just out of curiosity, I did tweet about staking yesterday, and someone replied to me about a service that I'm not familiar with. So for those that are listening and watching right now, have any of you used a service called stakecube.net? They offer shared
Stake
dash,
cube, not cubed stake.
No, stakecube.net, and they offer shared dash masternodes with a minimum slot share size of 0.25 dash, which is pretty interesting. So apparently they do daily payouts or something. So I'm not familiar with that service, but recently we had Bitcoin Swiss. They're now offering dash staking, Smart Valor. We obviously get CrowdNode, Neptune Dash. We've got loads of different services offering this. So people are slow. My point is accessibility to Dash in terms of being added to exchange. Everything else, it's growing month on month on month. So it's having a much, much bigger impact and in terms of onboarding users. And once the Dash Pay app comes there as well, and that ease of use and that onboarding process, as Joel was saying, that smoothness and lowers the technical barrier of ease of use for non-technological users, but an experience that they're used to from the legacy financing or banking world is going to make things so much more palatable and easy to transfer across. Because if it's cumbersome and it feels dangerous and risky, I have friends that have tried to get into crypto. They download a wallet, and then the first thing they're prompted is to write down their 24-word seed. And they're kind of like, oh, okay, if I do this. And then it's like, warning, if you lose this, you lose everything. And they kind of get terrified because they're preconditioned that their banks and services are going to look after everything for them and hold their hands. And they don't want to take on that financial personal responsibility for themselves to be in charge of their own money. So we need to be able to do it in a user-friendly way, be able to communicate that people can hold their money safely, but be open to all ages and technical abilities.
Yeah. I had a long conversation about this yesterday as well. I think that some manner of staking or trustless masternode shares, or whatever you want to call it, needs to happen as soon as possible. And there were there have been a few discussions around that. Part of it has been, Ryan Taylor had this big dissection of Dash's economics, and where he basically posited that the current setup is not good for Dash as a store of value. It leads to higher highs and lower lows, and just boom, all this kind of stuff in between. And he suggested a few things. Since then, a bunch of people first off, the topic has died off a whole lot, and a bunch of people have basically cast some doubt onto some base assumptions and stuff like that. It's a little less like cut and dry, and it's kind of gone away. But despite that, and of course, with a big old price pump, people are like, oh, who cares if it's, this is not the time to suppress the volatility because we want it to be volatile upwards. But there's something that's an elephant in the room that wasn't quite discussed. It's not what do we do? Do we offer staking? Do we offer trusted masternode services? Or do we not offer staking? Well, that third option is not an option. The third option is more classified as, do we let centralized services offer it for us? Because right now, you can, as a company, spin up a bunch of masternodes with customer funds and just pool it, just like we have those third-party services right now that are doing it, expressly calling it pooled masternodes and all this kind of stuff. But even ones just, Kraken staking, Binance staking, whatever, people want return on their investment. People want those little units back. And it doesn't matter if you slash the inflation rate or do something like that. Then basically, who cares if Dash, if you have 3% inflation a year, people are not going to connect that. They're going to just see, you get nothing back. But if you have 7.5% inflation a year and you have 4.5% staking rewards, people are going to go nuts over that, even if it equals out. And unfortunately, what we're going to see is a lot of people putting money on exchanges because that's the only place that they can actually get more than just appreciation on there. That's the only way they could passively get more tokens. And first off, from a proof of keys type standpoint, right? Not your keys, not your crypto, right? Which I don't agree with that. I think you can't have crypto that's not in your direct possession. But practically speaking, if not your keys, you're not sure of that you actually possess them long term. So first off, you have a lot of people's money where they don't actually control their money. So now you're back to the banking system, and that sucks. But it's even more sinister because the way people get recurring rewards on Dash right now is running masternodes. If you have 1,000 Dash, you can have that sort of financial freedom. If you don't have 1,000 Dash, you have someone else do it for you. The Dash masternode voting counts, voting participation rates are already fairly low. Part of this is because, what's the matter? Part of it is because it's just slightly too difficult. There's a few different barriers in the way. You can't just easily on your phone wallet just get a little bing prompt says voting time, click, 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 and done. There's a little bit more complexity and people just they don't want to do it. But also it's because a lot of people don't get masternodes because they want to vote and do all this stuff like that. They just want the money. They just want the recurring returns. And if you have a bunch of pooled masternodes, especially on exchanges, there's going to be a lot more non-voting masternodes. Remember that in order for a proposal to pass, it has to get a net 10% of the vote. So it could be some point at which there's so many non-voting masternodes that it is literally impossible to pass proposals. And at that point, even Dash Core Group gets defunded because there aren't enough people voting because most of the money is non-voting ways, and that could be a giant crisis. And of course, that's like the ultimate doomsday version of the voting problem. But in the short term, you could still have the most margin you could have is 100 or 200 votes, even if it's perfect. In which case, you could just have someone with a 88 vote whale who's like a mean person could just literally be the kingmaker up and down of any proposal because the margins are so thin, because you have so many non-voting nodes. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want people putting money into Dash and compromising its governance system because they just want a quick buck. And it's not their fault. Then they're going to do it. The free market decides. Now, of course, the other problem is we use chain locks right now to prevent 51% attacks from occurring and preventing a hash power takeover from destroying the network. Now, what happens if a significant portion of, let's just say, like as Darren Tapp estimated, 49% of the master nodes, what happens if they are on exchanges, like say a half dozen exchanges? Then a regulator could just go to those exchanges and compel them to attack the Dash network. And then that's like, oh no, now what do we do? Well, the mining too. And it's just, you target a few big mining farms, a few exchanges, and you just completely attack the decentralized network. So that's always going to be a risk. There's always risks to that. But if you offer a trustless staking or masternode solution, first off, if you offer a trustless staking solution that has nothing to do with the masternodes, people, if they flock to exchanges and things like that or whatever, first off, you won't have the voting problem because you'll still have the same number of masternodes. People staking on exchanges, staking through that won't be creating new masternodes. So therefore, there's no direct connection. Second, it won't necessarily compromise security because you still won't control the majority of masternodes, even though you'll have the funds to spin up into masternodes if you wanted to attack. But at least it's a second step, assuming a lot of it goes on exchanges. But a lot of it might not go on exchanges. A lot of people might just stake in their own wallets at home, especially if it's easy enough to use, and especially if it's a better rate. And so the same thing comes with trustless masternode shares, where now people can group together and create masternodes and not trust a third party with the funds and control. Now you still might have large services accumulating a bunch, which is inevitable in any case, but at least you have an option. Therefore, fewer people are going to be doing that. So I think that it's something that absolutely needs to be addressed before the next bull run and you have all kinds of people and institutions pouring in and into Dash. I think it has to be addressed. But there's good news, and I can't say much on it, but I have heard that there's a way to implement at least trustless masternode shares, at least in some kind of a way, today, and not really at the protocol level either. It's already possible. And if so, hopefully, this could be relatively easy to solve, and at least, this way of doing things. And hopefully, the price goes up so we can afford a proposal from independent developers to do something like that. But anyway, that's just, pretend I didn't say that.
Yeah, I think there's an important question here that's been asked in the chat. Will a higher price speed up development?
Yes.
The team kind of shrink to survive the bear market. So with regards, so I think you're referring to Dash Core Group there. So in terms of Dash Core Group, I believe they've been taking funds from their own treasury, their own reserves to get by. But I don't, in terms of like team expansion, I think they've been operating on lower costs and they've been cutting back as well. But I don't know if they will be on, if there is a direct need for them to onboard or fill in roles right now. Because I believe some people in Dash Core Group have been willing to work at a reduced amount because they believe in the project, and also volunteer time as well. But of course, if there's room to grow in other areas, fantastic. But up until this point, we need to be honest, the Dash community has largely been dependent on Dash Core Group for development. But once we get Dash platform to mainnet, I'm sure there'll be modular updates, as everyone would expect. However, that opens up the doors to open source. And, it's really what third-party developers come in and build on platform or make platform what it is. It's hard to describe what platform's going to look like because it's dependent on developers building their visions and their decentralized applications upon it. So it's difficult to ask a question. It's like yes and no. Will it change core right now? I'm sure they'll be still going ahead in the same direction. They're still going to have the same development team. If there is a need to hire other people, I'm sure they can look at that. I have not really heard that need behind the scenes, but if that is the case, hey, I think the community would welcome it. But in terms of like surviving the bear market, we're being very fortunate, and the people that are in Dash truly do believe in the project. And we're lucky to have some very talented people on board. And yeah, now the Dash price, if it holds, we should be plain sailing it. And Dash Core Group is sustainable at these prices, so we don't have it. It's not doomsday. We don't have anything to fear. So I don't want people to panic out there. Like, everything's fine, and the core team's hitting it out the park every week with their project updates.
Yes, and I'd like to clarify the nuance in that has the price delayed the release of Dash platform onto testnet? I don't think so. And has the price delayed other development possibly done by Dash Core Group that they could have done? Yeah, probably a little. But most importantly, has the price delayed outside development possibilities? Absolutely. There have been quite a few ideas for proposals to come forth. And for example, like the one that comes to mind is Dash Electrum, which I just, it's the backend Electrum servers and stuff that a lot of things run on. And I never really use the Electrum wallet or whatever, but Electrum was just, first off, they have a mobile wallet, which has more advanced features, but also they were on the verge of releasing private send, trustless private send for mobile and for their light wallet. And for those of you who don't know, you need to run a full node wallet in order to mix trustlessly right now in Dash. Or you don't technically, but as far as like the options available to you, pretty much. So yeah, first off, if you want to just want to use Dash on your laptop and mix and be private, because you should be mixing, you have to download this giant, double-digit gigabyte blockchain on your computer, and you have to have like these little like wallet.dat and backup files and a bunch of stuff that just are annoying to have. You can't just write down your seed and do it. But what if you could just have a wallet you could just install ready to go, put in your little words and your backup seed, and then just mix and private send? Fantastic. Or what if you could do that on your mobile phone? What if you could just use digital cash like digital cash? Like we were so close to that, and that got defunded. And it was funded and got defunded. I'm not sure if it was defunded because of the low price, but I know that, that could have been a factor. And then there have been other proposals to develop things that have not been funded, and other potential proposals that just, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, oh yeah, I want to build this. What do you think? I just say, dude, wait until at least triple digit Dash prices consistently before you even think about it. Just trust me, it's not going to work. And there we go. So here's to a higher price, and here's to higher development.
Right. Well, we're fast approaching the hour timestamp, so I think to wrap it up. But there's one last thing I want to say to everyone here, and that is Sunday's a really important day for Dash, this coming Sunday, because it will be the 6th birthday of Dash, January the 19th. So that means the first Genesis block of Dash was January 19th, 2014, I think about like 3:45 a.m. UTC, which is blockchain time. So Dash will be 6. And like what I would like to know from the community, so perhaps you can talk in the comments and engage with yourselves, is like, how do you think we should celebrate Dash's birthday? Obviously, Bitcoin has things like Pizza Day and everything else, but what should we do for Dash? Like, how we should celebrate? I mean, we've had so much innovation, especially over the last year as well. I would like to see some way for the community to come together to not only to celebrate, but also just a way to express Dash's achievements and what they've been able to do, not just as from development standpoint, but as a community and an international borderless solution.
Yeah, here's how to celebrate. Well. Pump the price to $666, as Ash Francis just recommended in the chat. Hey, don't jinx it when we get 66, because that's a no bueno.
I wonder how Ash came up with that number. But yes, so we'll wrap up the video now. But if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope, you can still write in the chats and the comments. We do read your comments. So yeah, write down, how do you think we should celebrate Dash's 6th birthday on Sunday, January the 19th? Okay, Joel, I think it's time to take this out. Would you like to inform our listeners and viewers about the after party?
Yes, if you liked what you saw here, which you should, comment on it, after not just in the live chat, but once the video's on YouTube and elsewhere, just comment, oh yeah, great this, and we do watch those, so we will get back to you. Comment, make sure you like it. If you've been viewing this and you haven't dropped us a like, you've made me a sad panda. So please drop a like. Share it if you. Some of us don't have like crypto like savvy timelines on Facebook or whatever, but if you do have anyone who might find this interesting, just share it. And the biggest thing, you got to make sure, if you haven't already done it, subscribe to the channel, because there's a lot more video content coming soon. Oh, believe me, I have some big plans. So now it's time for this thing we call the after party, which is video hangout, kind of like this, the two of us talking, except instead of the two of us, it's a whole bunch of people, including you. And it's not it's not recorded. So don't worry, you can say whatever. You can, let down your hair. I mean, I could let down my hair. You can crack open a beer. You can do whatever you want. And yeah, we do that sometimes to the wee hours of the morning. So the way you do that, it's like a speakeasy. You got to go ask around for it. Where's the after party? You go to the Dash Talk Discord, which is staydashy.com, and that'll get you right in. There's the link in the live chat right there. Go start asking out, hopefully in the general channel, but whatever. Hey, where's the after party? I want into the after party. And if no one's answering you, you can ping Mark Mason, that guy, or me, the Desert Lynx, and then we'll try to get you right in. And remember, once you're in, it's your webcam's going to come on and your audio is going to come on. So if you're out there on the street, in the cafe or whatever, and there's screaming banshees behind you, it's going to disrupt the thing. Careful with that. And if you're in your underpants or just getting out of the shower or whatever, just be careful with that camera. And or if you're just like, I want to join this after party, you just don't know that it's audio and video, not recorded. It's audio and video. And you're just like, oh, I don't have a mic, I don't have a webcam, never mind. You just leave disappointed. Before you get that hard up disappointed, I'm going to disappoint you right now. You got to have a webcam and a microphone, although some people just do audio only, don't do webcam. After party time.
Thank you, Joel. Well, that was episode 138. If you found this to be informative, different style, different vibe, this podcast, but I hope you enjoyed it regardless. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend wherever you are in the world. Stay positive, stay humble, but most importantly, stay dashy. Have a great weekend, everyone.